I'm going to do a call to order. Mr. Creighton.
Jack Creighton here.
Ms. Mark.
Ellen Mar present.
Chris Plex here.
Jean Haley Dippold here. All right. Grady, were you just calling the order?
Here.
Great. All right. All are invited to join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we dive in, just some logistics. To the extent there's folks on Zoom, please raise your hand and Justin will alert us to your presence. This meeting is not being monitored on Facebook or other social media. And to the extent that you do want to talk at the meeting, I'm going to ask you to come sit up here because folks watching from afar cannot see or hear you unless you're right here. And introduce yourself for the record, including with your name and address, please. So first agenda item is public comment. Is there any public comment? Anything online, Jessica? Okay, great. Second agenda item is appointment of police detail for special town election, November 18th, 2023. Mr. Senior, is there something specific you would like us to do other than all agree on that?
No, the way the law now works, the clerk has to formally ask the board who formally authorizes the detail. It used to just go through the police chief, but they add this extra level. I'm not quite sure why. Because it's always been easy here. So if the request is in the packet and or we just authorize that detail for the special election on November 18th, that'd be great.
Okay. I don't see a request in the packet. Is there a request that you have on hand that you would like us to read or specific language?
Okay. Authorize a police detail for November 18th, 2023.
Would anyone like to move that?
So
I'll make that
moved.
motion.
Is there a second?
Wait, who moved it? We had two
I did.
going.
Mr. Creighton moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Grady seconded. Okay. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are moving on to the one-day liquor license for Untold Brewing Lax Giving, November 11th, 2023. Here.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, please.
Hi, everyone. Matt Elder, founder, owner of Untold Brewing, Situate, a Cohasset resident, 18 Old Coach Road. We are looking for a one-day liquor license to basically repeat the event we did last year with Cohasset Youth Lacrosse. They are hosting basically an event to raise awareness and get more participation in the program. Did it last year and basically set up a booth and sold beer to anyone who wanted to have a beer. So we're just looking to basically repeat the blueprint from last year. We will have a police detail at the event. It's being held up at the Sports Center in Cohasset. That's kind of the gist of it.
Are there any questions the board has? Is there anything online, Justin?
No, I did promote the chief.
Okay,
He's a
great.
question.
Chief Quigley, is there anything you want to add?
Nope, just that we asked that you call the station and request that detail a couple days in advance.
Yeah, I'll call tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, would one person like to make a motion for this liquor license?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So this is a motion for Untold Brewing for November 11th, 2023, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Cohasset Sports Complex. Right, Mr. Flex?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No one is opposed. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
When are you coming to Cohasset? When's the branch open?
Soon enough. Thank you.
All right, the next event is the South Shore Community Center. Santa is coming to your neighborhood event. Saturday, December 9th, 2023.
Santa will be arriving by boat in Cohasset Harbor at 10 o'clock. Then we're going to have him go around to different neighborhoods And we will end the day at Spit Rock, where Santa and Mrs. Claus can sit, and people have a better chance of getting some nice photos for the Christmas cards. The only other thing I ask is that with our status as a nonprofit in the past, you have been very gracious waiving the event fee, and we ask again this year.
I will note that the applicant did not identify herself for the.
Oh,
But in this instance, because you're Santa, we do not ask you to do so. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion
Do you have
to,
questions first?
oh, yes. Are there any questions?
Yeah. How are the neighborhoods chosen?
We've been doing this now for 3 years, so we pretty much know what neighborhoods really come out for this event. So that's how we choose them.
Okay. So are they the same neighborhoods every year then?
No.
No, okay.
Well, actually, well, some of them are, because there's certain locations that just have a ton of children.
Right, like Linden Drive or
Right.
Forest Lane or whatever.
Right.
And one more question. And so you don't do the Jingle Bell Walk anymore?
No, we'd done it for 25 years,
Yeah, yeah.
and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we thought this was actually a more fun way of reaching the town.
Okay, it's great. My neighborhood's not on here, but that's okay.
Are there any
Thank
other-
you.
Other questions?
I would make a motion to approve the South Shore Community Center Santa's Coming to Your Neighborhood event, Saturday, September 9th, 2023. I would also make a motion to waive the fee.
Okay, so that's a part of your motion? Yep. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Right, we have the Chamber of Commerce, Cohasset Chamber of Commerce Holiday Stroll for also on December 9th, 2023.
Which is the first. Sean Cunning with, at 48 Jerusalem Road Drive.
Larry Corthell, Cohasset Chamber.
Yeah.
Provide us with some information on the event, which I think we're all familiar with this
Sure. It's
advertising.
going to be the traditional thing we've done the last couple of years. Walking the streets. We'll have the hayride around the common. And a stage set up by French Memories. We've got, I think, about 7 groups performing. So we'll have a sound stage, and each merchant will have a different thing going on all the way through 7:30 PM.
Starts at 4:30. There was some concern about overlapping with the community center's event, but they're going to be all wrapped up by 2 o'clock. I look at it as more of an add-on. Yeah, this is the first time we've overlapped that day. That's the only difference. We talked to Chief Quigley, and he was fine with it. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Chief.
Are you looking to do the tree lighting? Are we coordinating with you to do the tree lighting?
Yeah, we'll get going on that, yeah. I have some questions for you, so I just want to time it out.
The tree man's in the back corner there, so.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
Are there any questions the board has? Okay.
We request the fee be waived we've done it in the past too.
Well, have we waived it in the past? I'm trying to remember, Chris.
I don't know, I mean, we can't waive the fee for the details.
No.
It's usually waived.
Yeah,
Is someone willing to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the Cohasset Chamber of Commerce Holiday Stroll, Saturday, December 9th, 2023. I would also include in that motion waiving the fee.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Everyone's in favor. Okay,
Thank you. Thanks.
great, thank you.
All right.
See you later.
Okay,
You have people sitting you're facing that way, speak a bit louder.
Sure.
I think I probably heard like 20%.
okay,
He said so far this evening. I'd like to hear a bit more than that. I don't know how to deal with it. There's no microphone.
okay. Hold on. I think
I don't
Mr.
know.
Fry's gonna get
Maybe
one.
not today. But I'd like to have the opportunity.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right. We will continue with the Cohasset Triathlon agenda item for Sunday, June 23rd, 2024, 7 a.m. to noon time, and the Cohasset Kids Triathlon Saturday, August 3rd, 2024, 8 a.m. to plenty
Hi there.
of time to train.
Hello. Hi there. Bill Burnett at 28 Mohawk Way here in Cohasset. I know it's early to ask for the dates, but typically, that's okay. It's okay, Jay. Can you try this? Oh, I get the microphone.
Yeah.
Wow, why do I get the microphone? Should I start again?
Go ahead.
Please,
Yeah.
yes.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Bill Burnett. I'm at 28 Mohawk Way in Cohasset. I know it's early to come in front of the board. Typically, we do this every November because we open up registration on December 1st. So I realize it's quite early to ask for the dates to be set, but this is customary based in history. So we're looking for the adult triathlon on June the 23rd of 2024. That's a Sunday. I just received a text from the Sandy Beach board that they have a meeting tonight that's already been approved by them just about 5 minutes ago, that date. I'm also looking for approval for the kids triathlon. We did that this year and was really, really well attended. That date will be Saturday, August the 3rd of 2024.
Chief Quigley, is there anything you want to add in here?
No, that just, this is a, standing event that we have, and, we'll have several meetings beforehand with Bill, but this early approval gives us the opportunity to secure mutual aid resources in advance, like the command post and things like that. So it's good to be able to plan.
Are there any questions the board has? Any questions from the public? All right.
I'd like to move that we issue the license for the Cohasset Triathlon Sunday, June 23rd, 2024, 7 a.m. to noon, and the Cohasset Kids Triathlon Saturday, August 3rd, 2024, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Creighton and a second by Mr. Grady. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
And signature event.
Thank you. Thank you.
Plenty of time for everyone to.
Plenty of time to train, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
All right. 7:15. Almost on track. So now the next agenda item is a public hearing for the Cohasset Yacht Club for a new on-premises Section 12 all alcohol annual license. Is a continuation from our prior hearing.
Chair, under guidance of council, the members will be recusing ourselves.
Chair, I recuse myself, Jack Creighton.
Okay, Mr. Creighton and Mr. Plex are recusing themselves.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Gazda from McDermott, Quilty & Miller, 28 State Street, Boston, Mass. On behalf of the Cohasset Yacht Club. With me is Eric Cruz, who is the president and proposed manager of record. As the board is aware, this matter was previously continued from October 24th to provide the board with some additional time to consider the pending application for the new Section 12 club license for the club, which is being sought as one additional way to further activate the property and offer additional amenities for the club members. As was discussed during that hearing, this is one means of ensuring that the property remains more economically viable during off-peak seasons. And it will be our position that the license will not further intensify the use of the property, given that the club has historically offered a variety of different events at the club throughout the year and has a proven track record with the town of Cohasset as a responsible operator. We certainly don't anticipate the limited alteration of premise on the second floor for the service bar to be a very busy bar by any means. It's somewhat limited in scope insofar as the new bar will be approximately 33 seats and the hour of operation, I think, is capped at 10 p.m. is what we're looking for.
Correct.
So we don't envision this becoming a very busy, bustling bar by any means. If anything, the concern would be that it's not utilized too much by the members of the club. In terms of public need, the club itself has been a fixture here in Cohasset since the 1800s. And this is being sought as one means to ensure that the club can continue to operate for hopefully another 100, 200 years. Prior to submitting this application, the club did conduct a market analysis and found that the vast majority of similar clubs in the state do already presently have this type of license or have it in the pipeline. So this will keep them competitive with the other clubs in the area so that they can continue to serve the needs of the community and the members of Cohasset. With respect to community outreach, I know we touched upon that during the original hearing. Back towards the end of September, we did send the required abutter notices to all the properties within 300 feet. Now, approximately a month and a half, 2 months later, we have received no opposition since those had been sent out. Additionally, there was an opportunity for public comment at the first hearing. No members of the public appeared in opposition, and we have continued our discussions with the neighbors in the vicinity, and as we sit here today, have submitted letters of support from each and every one of them. So we feel that there's strong public need and public support for this application, and we are unaware of any public opposition whatsoever to what we're proposing here. So that having been said, we would certainly ask that it be granted tonight, but we're happy to answer any and all questions that you might have.
Are there any questions the board has?
Thank you for your comments and for the summary of the last meeting. You indicated that this application is going to be vital in helping the club stay economically viable, but yet you also said you didn't anticipate it to be overused. So I'm not sure how those two factors coexist. Like, I'm not, like, what kind of revenue are you expecting and how is it? You said you wanted, this is needed to keep the club going for perhaps another 100 years. So can you talk about the financials?
Yeah, I don't know if
Yes,
Eric can touch upon the proposed revenue, but just with respect to some of the things that it would allow them to do in terms of operating more in terms of off-peak months, the licensure would allow them to have more events without having to seek one-day licenses, but Eric can certainly speak to the proposed revenue stream that it might generate.
So the overall idea of this is that this is meant to be an additional amenity for existing members, a place to basically hang out with friends and expect that people might be there because there's a bar that's there. Only on the second floor, we've been very careful and to put it in an area where it's an amenity, but it's also in an area that's not in the center of the club. So we picked an area that's in the rear of the club for that, but it's mainly just an additional amenity for existing members. Our revenue, I don't know how much detail you want, but we're predicting it to, other than the typical party revenue, which would now go through the bar itself, which is what allows it to be economically sustainable. That's how the business model works.
Okay.
I don't know how much detail you want, but we're expecting to do maybe another $15,000 to $20,000 total in additional, but it's really meant to be an additional draw. I can go into more detail in this, but
No, so it's a little bit more than break even.
yes,
So a little bit more than break even, an amenity for your members.
correct.
Okay. I wasn't clear on, it sounded as if it was needed to keep the club financially.
So I can
On
speak
good
to that
footing.
a bit as to what Ryan, I think, was saying. So the Quasiaco's been through a lot of evolution in the past X number of years, but the biggest evolution we've had is that we tore down the old building, which was around for a very long time. It was a very inexpensive club to belong to. It was a wonderful club. We all miss it, but it was also sinking into the ocean. So we didn't have much choice. So we took that down, we bought additional property, and it changed the economic model for our club. And we went from being a very inexpensive club to join to now being something that we're still trying to keep very affordable. But we're also very aware that we were trying to provide more than just another building. So members basically paid an assessment for the new building, they pay more to get in now, and we're trying to give them more amenities for what they're getting. But we have bigger, economically, the bar should be a break even or better scenario for us. It would be nice if it was really a bustling place in some ways, but we don't anticipate it raising our membership cap. The goal is really just to provide additional amenities given the cost to join the club, which we're very cognizant of.
Thank you. And I have one more, Madam Chair. And so you referenced several times the public. This is, I just want everyone to be clear, this is a private club. There is no true public benefit to this. It's not like the Red Lion Inn or Bia or where anybody can walk in, you know, to socialize and enjoy. So it really is private. And I just want to clarify, you mentioned public several times.
It is a private club, but it is a private club that's open to members of the public joining. And the vast majority of the club membership are residents of Cohasset. But yes, it is a private club.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay.
Encourage you to come down though, and we're always welcome.
Does this take away from what our limited liquor licenses that we can issue if someone opens a restaurant or opens, you know,
Right, so-
that's open to the public?
Every community is capped by the
Yeah.
legislative fiat. And
Can you guys please speak up a little bit? It's very hard to hear what you're saying.
every community is capped by the legislature. And we have 3 open licenses right now for all alcohol restaurant use, which is what this effectively would be. And there are currently 3 potential applicants, one for each of those licenses kind of looming out there. This is the most current one, and there's potential one on 3A, and there's another potential one at the old Atlantica site.
The old,
The old Atlantica site.
oh, okay, thank you.
Out of 17 total, so the cap for Cohasset is 17 total common victualler licenses. That is for consuming on premise as opposed to for sale and walk
We
out.
only have 3. We only have 3 off-premises stores that are all alcohol, and those are all used. And there's a
Right.
couple of beer and wines that are also used. The state has a very strict cap that's based on population to a large extent. Cohasset, a number of years ago, apparently got an extension from the legislature. I want to say that Hull just went from war a few years ago.
We saw special legislation to get 5 additional licenses for certain areas.
So in order to get more, you have to petition the legislature. If the town wanted to have more for restaurant use or anything, you have to. We reach a point where they're all gone, that's how it would work.
So if they're all gone, then, and we have more open commerce come into town with restaurants, then we would have to petition a benefit for the public as opposed to a benefit to add a benefit for the public.
Once the town has issued all of its available licenses, there are no more to issue, unless someone turns one back. That happened a few years ago. Every once in a while, a restaurant will go out of business, they'll turn the license back and then go back to.
So right now we're at 17, and this would be the 3rd private club license, the Cohasset Golf Club, the Legion,
I guess.
and this.
That would be the case.
It's a little less than 18% of our total licenses are for private. That's my only concern. One out of 5 licenses are for private use only. And I understand memberships are large. You know, you probably have a very robust membership, and I applaud you for that.
About 280, but that's our cap.
That's your cap. So you can't grow it any more than that.
We could go to 300 with
Yeah.
parking, but we're pretty cognizant of space and respect to the neighbors.
Thank you.
When you say your cap, is that the people that can join?
That's a total, at the moment, it's 280. Our issue is parking, really.
All right, so if someone wants to join right now, they have to wait till someone either,
We're not at our cap. We're not at our cap right. We're not at our cap right now. We're below the cap.
so that leaves 3 licenses with 4 applicants right now?
No, there's actually only 1 active application, that's the one in front of you. There are 2 that that have inquired, but I don't know that they've formally filed yet.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Paul Curran, 16 Heritage Lane. Just one quick comment. The other thing the yacht club does is they do functions. And so although it's a member would be would rent a place, many non-members come to our club for weddings, bridal showers, stuff like that. So there is an aspect of non-members that do use our club. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
And I'm glad she mentioned that because we also have the policy of allowing one You can bring guests to the club as well. And we have guests there frequently. So it's a private club, but we have a lot of guests there from town.
I have another question. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I hope you don't mind because I find this fascinating. So now that events can be managed through your own liquor license, and that is a big revenue generator for you. So that's probably more substantive to your financial position than the Saturday afternoon crowd coming in after a day of sailing, right? To sit at the bar. Is that fair? Or you don't know yet?
I think it would be a fair assumption that not having to outsource to third parties to serve liquor during functions would
Yeah.
certainly be a net plus, but Eric can.
I hope so. That's my answer. This is a project we've worked on for a year. I don't like to speak about things I don't know for certain
Yeah.
because I just don't know.
Mhm.
What I do know is our club is a beautiful building. We're very proud of it, but there's nothing there that draws people just to hang out in the club.
Mhm.
So we're one of the very few yacht clubs in the South Shore. There are actually only 3 that have no other amenity other than the docks themselves.
Mhm.
So we're not going to have a restaurant anytime soon, if ever. We're trying to figure out what's the easiest amenity for people to actually come and sit, where a person can come and see other people there. So we would expect it might increase traffic, but we don't plan for much of it, actually. It is literally, can this sustain us financially? Do we think it's going to be a hit? We hope so. If we're going to do this, we hope it's successful. But I don't know how much is going to change, how much is used. I hope it changes it to 10 to 15 people per night, which is our actual plan in the between events. But the way our club right now functions is unless you're sailing on the water, or unless you're racing, or unless you're using your boat, we're not going to really bump into each other. So if you're not in the sailing crowd, we don't see each other much. We have parties, but that's it. So we're trying to get a draw to get people to come down and be able to stop there. That's the goal. So answer to your question, I think it will increase activity amongst the non-sailors. Sailing, we're still pretty social after sailing, but it's the rest of the time that we're trying to increase to get more activity. Hopefully that works. That's the goal. Hope.
All right, is there any discussion the board wants to have?
Thomas,
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm Steve Scullin. I live at 98 Howard Leeson, which is abuts the yacht club as well as being across the road. And the comment I would make is we've been here roughly 5 or 6 months, and the yacht club is, from our perspective, a great asset for the town as well as for voters in the town of Cohasset. It was surprising to us actually at how outgoing and welcoming the yacht club was. Having been around other yacht clubs which are not that. It's a beautiful facility that is extremely well run. And if this helps them be more financially viable, we are in support of it. And again, I would come back to the point that it's extremely well run, very coordinated with all the neighbors and how they do things, particularly parking, which can be an issue. And so we're just very supportive.
Thank you. Is there any further comment from the audience? Anyone online, Justin? Okay. Is there any discussion the board wants to have? Any thoughts? Would anyone like to make a motion, one way or the other?
I want to make a motion. Okay. And I feel in familiar ground with you in terms of launching something and not having all the answers to all the questions, considering, what we as a select board are going through right now. I would just request that, you monitor the use of the license. And if it's not viable, if it's not prudent for you to have it, turn it back to the town so that a public entity that may come along can use it, that can serve all of the people in Cohasset and not the membership.
We greatly appreciate that feedback. In fact, we've already had that conversation and we've discussed internally that if this is something that does not work out and doesn't prove like a good idea for us, ultimately, we've remodeled our second floor and we have a beautiful space that we can spend time in, and we will happily turn our license back at that time. We've done a lot of research with other yacht clubs. It seems to be very successful, other yacht clubs. We asked other yacht clubs, do you regret this? Nobody said yes. Everybody said it was a big victory. We're hopeful that's the case. All of our numbers indicate that. If it's not, we are certainly more than happy to do so. We don't want to take up a town license by any stretch.
Okay, you've convinced me because I was not for this coming into this meeting. I will make a motion to grant the on-premises, Section 12, all alcohol annual license to the Cohasset Yacht Club.
Okay, is the town manager question?
Yes. Well, we have a pending motion. Why don't, we'll see if there's a second and then we can have further discussion if you'd like. A second? All right. Oh,
Yes, it just popped in.
okay.
Please question?
We have a motion and a second right now. We have discussion. Ms. Justin, yes, if you'd like to read the comment or question.
Yes, would you like me to read it?
Yes.
Yeah.
From Deidre Hobson, who will monitor the success? Question mark.
Who will monitor the success? So I believe this was a request made to the yacht club to report back to the select board in terms of their success or lack thereof.
So our current plan is to be clear, it doesn't benefit us to keep this if it's not economically viable. And we've given this a tremendous amount of thought, and ultimately, we ended up we need to remodel our second floor. It's not, the way it was constructed originally, it's not the most useful area. So we said, well, let's put a bar up there. It'll be a good use of that space. If it's not economically viable for us, we don't want to run it. So we watch these finances monthly. And so the answer to Deirdre's question is we will monitor these finances, because if the members, if it's not economically viable, we're not going to keep it open. Our club is pretty financially frugal on expenses, and our club will not like that very much. That much I can assure everybody. So if it's not a successful entity, we have lots of controls in place. We think it's a 2-year experiment. We think it's going to take time to get off the ground. People have, it's an old club. People have a lot of habits. So we kind of look at this as, let's try this. Members seem overall, not, I wouldn't say 100%, but largely supportive. And we think it's a 2-year thing. But at the end of the 2 years, it's not successful, then we would, it would be based on finances, honestly. Finances and attendance, in worst case, we turn our license back in and we have a beautiful space that we can use, that people are now used to spending time in. So the answer to Deirdre's question is we're going to monitor all the finances and make sure it's working out for the club.
Thank you. Mr. Grady?
I just had a question. If we had to file, if someone comes to town that wanted to open, we don't have an existing license, we had to file for an extension like they did in
Can
Hull.
you repeat the question, please? We can't hear it.
If we had to file for an extension or ask for additional licenses, would there be a cost to the town?
Well, we have to lobby the legislature. I mean, and not no more than any other home rule petition. We'd have
Okay.
to.
Just set this, thank you.
So we do have a pending motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Excuse me, I just want to clarify, petitioning the legislature, obviously, as you know, requires a town meeting vote. It goes through the legislative process, but the legislature can put conditions on that license if they approve an additional license. And sometimes these conditions don't make the licenses very attractive. They restrict them to not being able to sell the license. I don't want the board to think that it's going to be easy attempt to get additional licenses. It happens regularly, but there are conditions, so it's.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Attorney Lamke. And Ms. Marr, with your motion, I think hours are important, including if we're talking about functions here. And so I'm looking at the applicant's application with respect to proposed hours, Wednesday through Friday, 5 PM to 10 PM, Saturday and Sunday, noon to 10. Is that embedded in your motion or?
Yes, would you like me to rephrase my motion? I'm happy to.
If you want to amend, I think you probably, well,
Okay. Yes, I would have to amend. So I'd like to make a motion to amend my previous motion.
okay. Second. Well, what's your amendment, actually?
Well, we have to approve the motion to amend, and then I make the amendment.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion to amend?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so my new motion is to approve the new on-premise, Chapter 12, all alcohol annual license for Cohasset Yacht Club. Proposed hours of operation are Wednesday through Friday, 5 to 10 PM, and Saturday and Sunday, 12 noon to 10 PM.
Second. Any further discussion?
Excuse me. Sorry. I believe there was a discussion before about Monday holidays that they wanted to be open. I didn't hear that in the motion just made.
We did not get new paperwork to that effect.
You did submit a supplement. This was back prior to the original hearing. I do have a copy of it. It was basically the same hours with a caveat of, here we go. It just had a paren excluding legal holidays to the extent they happen to fall on a Monday and a Tuesday. It's up towards the top there in the first box.
The last discussion on Monday hours was proposal for 12 to 10 Monday holidays.
Sorry, first time I'm seeing this document. Hours of operation, excluding legal holidays when the club may open. So for legal holidays on a Tuesday like Veterans Day, you would open.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I think you could move to amend and then just say, to the extent Monday is a legal holiday from 12 to 10.
Monday, Tuesday.
If there's one of those quirky ones that happens to fall on a Tuesday, they're rare, but there are
Holidays on Tuesday?
a couple of them. Yeah.
4th of July.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Veterans Day.
okay.
Are these federal holidays or are these Massachusetts state holidays? Like Patriots Day is a Massachusetts state holiday, but not a federal, so.
State or federal, why don't we do that?
You say Monday holidays, that would probably cover whether it's federal or state.
Is Valentine's Day a holiday?
Pardon me?
Is Valentine's Day a holiday?
No, 4th of July, not Valentine's Day.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, we need to be clear in terms of what's a federal holiday and what's a
Why don't you
state
do-
holiday and what's a celebratory holiday, like Valentine's Day or St. Patty's Day. Does St. Patty's Day count, but Valentine's Day doesn't count? I mean, we have to think through what this actually means.
State and federal.
I would think, yes.
State and federal holidays that are Mondays and Tuesdays was our only request.
Okay,
You want to allow for holidays as you're describing, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, other holidays like that. You can specify that in the motion if you want.
My suggestion is it's easiest just to do state and federal holidays.
yeah.
If they want a one-day liquor license, then we can address it when it comes.
okay, so third time's the charm. I will make a motion to amend the previous motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, here we go. I would like to make a motion to approve the Cohasset Yacht Club new on-premise Chapter 12 all alcohol liquor license for Wednesday through Fridays, 5 PM to 10 PM, Saturdays and Sundays, 12 noon to 10 PM, with the exception of hours of operation on Monday and Tuesday could be open for state and federal holidays from the hours of noon to 10. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? I suppose I would just weigh in and say, I share Ms. Marr's concerns, including about the limited availability of our licenses. And I think that Atlantica / that project is about 2 years out, or at least a year and a half from having any sort of opening. I think that would be a good time for the board to invite the yacht club in to discuss the status, because I'm sure that your members would be equally interested in having an Atlantica license open up if that becomes the trade-off, which it could, given how close we're getting in terms of liquor licenses. And so I do think that that is some of the options we may be facing, because it is very difficult to get special legislation through, as we have found in other areas. All right, that said, is there any? Okay, no discussion. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Right.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
If you want to use the mic or no? Your call.
You can leave it in case.
You know, you just hold that down for 2 seconds until the
Okay.
green light comes on.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, select board members.
It's painful.
Evening. Sorry, take it, Chris.
Thank you. We're waiting on Jack.
Probably.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're now moving on to the special town meeting, updates, discussions, and votes. First up is 1 Pleasant Street. Here, we have a housekeeping item, warrant Article 5, to see if we needed a revote in light of the discussion you were having with Council, Mr. Plex, if you want to update us on the situation.
So I had a number of additional conversations with council, and I was advised that to address any potential concerns about whether or not there's a conflict of interest between me as a select board member, my property at 17 Pleasant Street, and the property at 1 Pleasant Street. I should work with a licensed real estate agent to investigate whether an opinion describing how there was no financial relationship between the valuation of my property and the discussions underway for 1 Pleasant Street. So we completed that. It is now on file at Town Hall, clarifying that I have no financial relationship with any of the discussions at 1 Pleasant Street relative to my property at 17 Pleasant Street.
Okay, thank you. And the conclusion is a revote is not necessary.
Council did advise that a revote may be considered if someone were to challenge whether or not this information was available for the first vote.
Okay. So I think that in an abundance of caution, would someone like to make a motion to revote warrant Article 5, which is the motion for Town Hall to purchase and acquire Town Hall?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's good to see the board still has unanimous vote on Town Hall. All right, now we are moving on to the affordable housing / CPC recommendation, which is warrant Article 6. Mr. Reardon, I see you in the audience. Do you have a quorum? Do you want or need to open your?
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
We do have 4, I think, if we include Paul, who's in the room.
Oh, yes. Great, okay. And you're welcome to come up here if there's anything you need to do on your end with roll call or. Okay. Okay, so last we left off, the status was that CPC had withdrawn its recommendation by a vote of 6-2 with respect to the 1.3 million on warrant Article 6. That accompanied a request to the select board to consider additional deed restrictions. The select board had a discussion about it last Tuesday. As to the request, after much deliberation, the select board declined at this time to do additional deed restrictions on the remaining 9 units. We asked Mr. Senior to advise us on the appropriate way forward, including as it might relate to a motion at town floor, sort of where we might land in light of this new situation. And Mr. Senior, if you'd like to report out, including what council has advised procedurally.
So council recommended that the motion just be shrunken to include the other 3 points, the historic cabinets, the support for the maintenance of preservation of the housing units at 60 Elm, and then the money for the fields, the courts and tennis courts and playground. With the chair or the presenter from CPC.
Oh, here you go.
Hit the button and hold the button until it turns green. The light turns green.
So after speaking with council, the recommendation was that the motion be, the actual motion on the floor include only the 3 other points, the money from the historic preservation cabinets for the library, the money for the preservation of the affordable housing at 60 Elm, and the money for the playground and courts renovations, with the presenter, which I would guess would be Chairman Reardon, explaining why the other item wasn't there. That would be the simplest way of handling it, rather than have a motion that has, complications in it. So that's what's been drafted, with an expectation that that's okay with it. Does that answer? Any questions of me on that?
Okay, and I would invite Chairman Reardon if you want to weigh in, including if that's amenable to you.
The committee has not had a chance.
Sorry. Yeah.
The board has not had a chance to vote on this, but I think the sense of the board, that would be fine. I don't see a problem with that.
Okay. The select board, any comments?
No, I think from the beginning, we have always envisioned that all of the extra housing in the new town hall would be affordable in one manner or another. However, doing it all under one thing it would require a lot of understanding how we would able to, for instance, have local preference, have veterans, have police and firemen, have police being able to live there. So as far as whatever CPC, in my opinion, whatever CPC is comfortable putting to or putting nothing, is fine with us. It's your decision to make, and that's fine. At least for this select.
Well, judging from the last vote, the 62 vote, that discussion talked about a feeling on the part of the CPC members that our responsibility was to expand the number of affordable units under a specific definition. And with all due respect, the goodwill of this board to do this voluntarily in a flexible way would not bind future boards. So if we want affordable housing, then you need to stipulate affordable housing. So that's the view of at least the 6 people. Now, we're happy to go back after you decide how you want to approach this and put it before the group. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. So if there's something that you want to consider, but I think based on the discussion, that 6-2 looks to me like that's where people are.
We have my sense is we have no desire to get into a discussion or arguments with CPC. You have your mandate, and we respect that. And if you're not comfortable with doing that, then withdraw it, and that's fine. If it turns out down the line that some of the things that we're doing you may wish to support, that's fine. But the benefit of the town hall is such a great benefit for the town that it just seems kind of counterproductive to encumber it with something that isn't quite completely decided. So the town hall is a very powerful, very positive for the town hall, the Pleasant Street purchase. So it doesn't make any sense for us to encumber it, and nor do we want to get into some kind of, adversarial discussion with CPC. CP has a very important mandate, and we respect what you're doing, and we, at least my sense is, we support what you're doing, and that's fine.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ms. Mar?
So the original, there are 4 deeded, 40B, right? And the ask and the first, vote you had was for 1.3 million. Is there an amount for the 4 units that CPC? No, I'm saying no.
I think the view of the committee, as it's been expressed up until now, is that our responsibility is to use money to add affordable units. The 4 are already required under the deeds. So if we were to pay for those 4, we're not adding to the stock. If we then decided we wanted more units restricted, we'd be very responsive to that. We need to have an appraisal on the property to know what the 1.3 actually is buying and what each of those units, but we are happy to entertain a proposal to expand the number of units restricted as affordable.
Comments?
No, I mean, I expressed my disappointment last week. Reason that we can't be tied right now because it's an untried project. Could I see your microphone? So it's an untried project. With all hopes of real success and the benefit of the town. Where my disappointment lies, and again, I expressed it, is what we're trying to do is work within the spirit of CPC's community preservation. I understand your points. I don't have to agree with them, but I understand them. Doesn't mean maybe we can come back, but I think by doing this, if we try to restrict them now, we may box ourselves in to something that may not be a benefit for the town. So we have to look at that carefully. So I just want to leave it at that. Thanks, Tom.
Justin, are there any comments?
I don't have anybody, no.
Just want to roll off.
So it was my view in the beginning. It was my view in the beginning and continues to be my view that the 4 units are in fact an appropriate use of CPC funding as deeded. I also understand the points that CPC are advocating for, and I think where this dialogue has led us to is to really think more intently, which I appreciate that this has been the result, think more intently about really those 9 units and what the appropriate AMI is. Because CPC, the law itself does have restrictions that ironically make the 4 units clearly qualify, right, for CPC funding. But the 9 units, if the town wants to reach some goals in terms of doing more local preference, keeping in mind what in fact our area median income is when you look at the actual data, including of our workforce and the residents, including residents who want to remain living here but don't otherwise qualify at the other affordable housing unit income limitations that otherwise exist throughout this town. That's the gap that we're trying to fill. And so that is the rock in a hard place a little bit we find ourselves with respect to CPC funding. And as I said last time, I think it makes more sense for us to not encumber the units, to have that flexibility to try to meet the overall goals, including for Cohasset. So for example, workforce housing was a part of the Cohasset housing production plan that the select board signed off on 3 years ago. And we've done a lot of research on workforce housing and understand that a lot of these eligibility requirements will candidly not fit within the CPC limitations at the end of the day, based on the data we're seeing. It's just the reality of what we're looking at. And the same is likely going to be true for people who are struggling to stay in Cohasset but don't otherwise qualify at the 80% requirement. It's just a reality when you look at incomes, particularly in a two-person household, when you calculate that. So I think that the select board is committed to continue to work with CPC, including as I think we try to work towards the mutual goals of affordable housing in this town, but also housing that is also tailored for Cohasset and what we know about Cohasset, which may not be necessarily right now something we can make a decision on. So Tom, I don't know if you feel you need to do anything procedurally right now, or if you want to wait. I'm mindful we have town meeting on Monday.
We have a meeting tomorrow night,
Okay.
and from the reports I've got, we have a forum, so we'll digest what we do, and then we'll try to figure out how we should most constructively respond.
Okay. So I think maybe the next step is right now is that if we wanted to direct Mr. Senior to proceed based on council's advice with respect to the CPC recommendation or lack thereof, based on the presumption that you will not be recommending the 1.3 million, which
That's my expectation.
which I thought you had voted on it earlier, and so
We did vote to rescind
yes.
the prior vote, but that left us with a blank slate. And the way that meeting ended, the select board and the town manager were going to come back with a new proposal. And so that's what we were waiting when we scheduled the meeting for tomorrow. It does not appear that a new proposal is going to be coming, so that will leave the blank, so we will reaffirm or not. I mean, we'll have another discussion on what people want to do. But my expectation is it'll end up probably with a 62 vote to not go forward, but I don't know that.
Okay. So again, I think where the select board is on our end is assuming that the 6-2 vote, as Mr. Reardon, I think, is accurately predicting based on what we know from the past meeting occurs, do we want to direct Mr. Senior to prepare the motion based on the advice of council?
I would second, I would.
Yes.
Is it a motion?
I would agree.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Let her finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would someone like to make a motion to request Mr. Senior, to the extent that CPC removes its recommendation, only move forward with his town manager motion as to the 3 items that CPC continues to recommend?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. I think that concludes the CPC portion. Mr. Reardon, if you just want to keep us updated and we'll work together as things evolve on your end. Thank you. Thank you, CPC. Okay. Just a few updates for everyone on town hall in another direction. Yesterday, capital budget voted as to its support or not for town hall. The vote was 1-4. 1-4. 1 in favor, 4 against. So there were some issues that came up at Capitol. And what I asked Ms. Leary to try to get some information from our council on at least one of the issues that came up, and then some other questions that the board just might want to talk about and discuss. So one of the issues came up was that there was some discussion about whether we should be putting the property into an LLC to protect the town from the potential liability exposure, which at capital budget, we did explain that based on previous advice we had gotten from council, that there's the Mass Tort Claims Act that's in place. And what that does is essentially limit a town's liability up to 100,000, assuming a town is not negligent. And that is a unique protection for towns, which would otherwise typically apply in this circumstance as well, which is what council concluded. But we asked her to consider the LLC idea or concern that people had. And so, Ms. Leary, if you wouldn't mind reporting out, and I'm going to give you the mic so people can hear also. Because there's been a lot of discussion about the LLC, so I just wanted to land that plane.
Sure. So the actual question was, can the town create an LLC for the Affordable Housing Trust for enhanced liability protection? And the answer is, some affordable housing trusts have created LLCs through which they operate. However, since a municipality has liability protections under the Massachusetts Tort Claims Act, it is not clear if the LLC will be able to avail itself to those municipal protections.
So the irony is that by creating an LLC, we remove the protection that a town uniquely enjoys under the Mass Tort Claims Act. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Not on that one.
No?
Seems straightforward.
Okay, all right. I feel the need to continue to get facts here. There was a question about the, and I think this is something the board was also talking about, but more in the context of deed restrictions, whether there was a potential in the future for us to sell the units after the fact, if for any reason that is something that a direction the town wanted to go in. If somehow we're locking ourselves in by not having a condo association structure, for example, right now, and, you know, doing that analysis. And so again, we asked council to weigh in on that, including whether there was future flexibility on that point, if that's something a future board felt was necessary.
So we asked town council if we could preserve the option to turn the apartments into condominiums and sell at a future date. The answer is yes. We can create a master condominium, there being commercial sub-condominiums, and a residential sub-condominium for the residential units. The residential condominium will have its own board of trustees, and the town may sell the residential units as whole to one buyer or sell the units separately. Which also led to the question of how can the town remain controlling of the condo association? And it's based on square footage. So the town can still exercise its right to remain 51% control of the building, even if in the future they decide to condo the units.
Is that based on square footage? So, because the town hall is the big kid on the block. So, it makes sense.
So I guess the short answer is that yes, if the town wants to move in the direction of selling some or all for whatever reason, there's still the potential to do that. It could, for example, be to the Affordable Housing Trust, if that is a preferred option in the future for whatever reason. That remains an option if we wanted to sell some but not all, again, for whatever reason, that we still maintain flexibility, which seems to be the theme a little bit of the meeting tonight. Does anyone have any questions?
If I could ask, I didn't attend the capital budget meeting. Were these the reasons cited by the 4 votes against the project?
There was a
And
myriad.
so many more. I have 4 pages of notes
Okay.
that I took.
Yeah. Some of it related to risk and how do we account for risk in the context of really affordable housing generally. And so, Ms. Leary, if you want to talk about that aspect, including on the insurance front, that would be helpful.
So we actually had the opportunity to speak to a property management professional from Wynn Corporation. And she walked us through all of the possible pitfalls of affordable housing, market rate housing, and housing in general. And what she had stated is that while we were concerned about vacancy rates in turnover, for affordable housing, actually vacancy rates are the lowest vacancy rates possible, and the turnover is very minimal. She also indicated that insurance requirements for affordable versus market rate rentals, there's no difference. You're insuring a unit, whether it's affordable or whether it's market rate. So those were some questions that came up, and she was able to dispel those for us. She's a wealth of knowledge. If we have any questions, she's happy to answer them for us. We just need to provide them in advance.
And we are researching insurance right now, if in fact One Pleasant Street goes through, right, in terms of that cost? Okay. Could you talk a little bit about workforce housing and the area median income they use in their workforce housing, I believe in Quincy, which is a very large workforce housing?
So what she indicated is workforce housing. What they like to refer to it as is market rate housing with rules. So to dispel that workforce housing, that's what they call it. And they range anywhere between 80% area median income to 165%, which is not dissimilar to what they do in P-Town, which is 200% AMI. So we can set our own rules as long as our policies are tight and consistent, then we can set the AMI rate.
And so following from that, I asked Ms. Lear to quickly recalculate numbers based on, and when I say numbers, what I'm really talking about and gesturing to, and Cindy, since you're the only one in the audience, you're welcome to have a copy. I'm talking about assumptions that on the projected profit and loss statement as it relates to the One Pleasant Street units. Here, using now AMI, area median income based on 100%, or for a 2-person household, 119. So that means that, you know, you have 2 people who are potentially working, making, let's say, no more than 60,000 each or some combination thereof that gets you up there. So based on the 100% AMI, here we're looking at, just based on the figures, $407,000 approximately for annual rent. And then when we account for a vacancy rate using the 5% for the 1-beds, 4 1-beds, and then using 10 to 15% for the 2 remaining 1-beds, and then 15% for the 2-beds, assuming 13% interest, assuming a 12% management fee. Here, we're looking at still a net profit for these units of $176,000 a year. And so again, we're trying to add in information we're hearing from professionals who are doing this locally right now, right?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Clarifying question, is the 176, is that the profit or is that the expense total?
That's the profit, from what I understand the chart to be indicating.
That would be, I believe, normally referred to as net operating income, which is after you subtract all expenses, including vacancies. That's what's left over.
I thought that was based on vacancies. 176.
So,
So that's the low.
so the 176 is based on all of these components, which
Yeah.
would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's the net operating income of the building for those units.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this includes miscellaneous expenses. I think in the beginning, there's probably gonna be some startup costs, like policies and procedures oversight. So that's one of the things, Mr. Plex, that came up. Is there gonna be intense oversight in terms of our municipal staff needing to oversee our property manager who oversees units, and what sort of intense requirement is that gonna be? And so if you could speak to that in terms of what actually happens in a routine situation.
So there were several questions about the actual oversight and will we need to add an FTE to, you know, manage the property management company? And the answer is no. Very similar to all the other vendors we manage on a daily basis. We all have vendors in our portfolio that we manage, and this is no different. The property management company is responsible for work orders, to provide the delinquency rate, to provide annual reports, monthly reports, weekly reports if we want it. They deal with all move in, move out expenses. They deal with tenant selection. So they collect the rents. So as far as us intervening in that, it would be just to review the reports and make sure we're on track.
So in other words, no layer upon layer upon layer after that, which is one of the concerns that we seem to be getting from capital, right?
I think, I appreciate what you said, but I think it would be prudent for us, you know, if and when this launches, that we do have some, and I'm not going to say hourly or daily oversight, but we really need to have feet on the ground as the relationship builds between the town of Cohasset and the property manager, so that we understand Unit 5A is leaking and we understand that there's loud drums in another unit. We need to own that and be responsible for it and work through all the kinks. We don't want to get caught after 30 days and someone says something and someone comes to us and say, did you know about it? Well, no. Do you know what I'm saying? I think it's really vital that we have someone dedicated, because this is a unique vendor. It's not a vendor like we deal with, right? A property manager, we deal with contractors, we deal with plumbers, we deal with electricians. We don't deal with property managers as a vendor. So we have to kind of treat it a little bit differently, in my opinion.
So Ellen, are you thinking of adding an FTE specifically to manage the property manager?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that, you know, we need to support Chris and Michelle to figure that out. And if it's an independent contractor, if it's Michelle and her responsibilities go to someone else in the interim, then they go to someone else. I don't see it as a full-time, long-term position.
Okay.
I think the transition period is vital for us to make this as successful as it can be.
I do think that's inherent on any property management company. I mean, you know, I deal with them, and again, they'll be reporting into you or Chris, letting you know what's going on. It's gonna be, you know, startup until things smooth out. Then that's the property manager's job, is to take care of that. If there's an issue that's insurmountable, then you report it to the owner of the building, ergo the town. I don't think it's that complicated, Ellen. You know,
I don't think it is
I
either,
think you'll
Paul.
have some pitfalls as we go.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, just to allay some of the concerns of people that are saying that, I think is to really try to uncomplicate it. Is we're the property manager, that's their responsibility, that's what they're getting paid for. They will report to Chris or Michelle, or whoever is designated. And then you're off and running. You know, I mean, I don't think that we need to know about every little water leak or something like that, because that's what a property manager does. They fix them. And, you know, it's part of the part and parcel of what we're paying for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, this of course plays in some of my professional world. The property manager will be handling all of that, and they will give succinct reports to Michelle or whomever. And it should not at all be a large burden on the town staff. We should not be having to add additional people. That's the property manager's job. And of course, we'll be right there, you know. This will be upstairs, and I think that you'll find that the tenants will keep you well apprised of everything that's going on. You may not like it, but I think you'll find that out. So, but Ellen, you bring up some very good points. And as we move into this, I think you'll find that it will work with this kind of structure.
We just, offline, I'll go over with you because I'm not following the numbers here. Okay, because if you look at the annual rent, even if, then you look at the costs across the total to 12,852. So the net profit on that first one is 25,673. I think the costs are 176. We can talk about this offline, but. Talk about it offline. Yeah. It's not making sense.
So, one thing I was hoping that we could do really for each project, and I think we can calibrate to sort of the level of questions that we've been getting, but I do think it would be helpful for the board to weigh in to make sure that we're speaking with one voice on, for example, frequently asked questions. I updated the ones for town hall, and I did some ones for road and sidewalk based on information that was coming out, both at event, my going to the RTF and listening to people, and also listening to the various committees and their questions. And so, you know, some of these are obvious ones that we've been talking about. Others, though, you know, we have gotten, for example, a lot of questions about why can't we just repair the existing town hall, including the annex? Here, we know the cost from last year was 18 to 19 building just to repair what is sitting there as is right now, and that didn't include code updates, egress that we would need to do, et cetera. We've also had questions about how many people work at town hall and why we're not or can't remote services. And that does continue to be a question that's out there. And so I did want to pause on it and just make sure that we were all on the same page there in terms of why we can't just remote all town hall services, or the vast majority, and thus obviate the need for any space.
Are you looking for answers?
I have a proposed answer in there, but again, I want to make sure we're on the same page.
No, I think we're on the
Yeah.
same page.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was at town hall several times today, and every time I was there, 2 or 3 people were passing me in the halls who were not town employees, who were there to do something in person that maybe they could have done remotely. But I think there's still an important population in this town that prefers to do things in person at town hall. And we all know how challenging it can be sometimes when you're trying to do something remotely, when you just want to speak to a person face to face. I think that's an important service for us to continue to provide.
I mean, it's kind of a misnomer. Town hall is intrinsic in a town's operation, just as you just said. It's like, you know, going to the bank and cashing a check when we used to have to do that. But people like to go in, they like to see a voice, they like to see a face. They like to argue over their water bill, they like to argue over the tax bill. And it's inherent in really what it, either a large town or a small town. People like a place to go. I mean, I spend as little time in town hall as possible, but I still go there to get my stickers. I still go there to vote. I still go there. So I don't know what they're thinking. Should we erect a tent in the common for voting? It's just part of the town's operation. It's, me, I just think it's I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, the remote thing works at a point in time, but not everybody's gonna want to do that. Matter of fact, the majority like to stop down if you have to pay a bill or something along those lines. So I think we're on the same page. I just went off on a different.
I think with COVID brought about a whole new way to look at work. And some of us still work in an office and some of us work remotely. And I'll just say personally, my company had a back to work rule that once COVID was lifted, and people have grumbled and there have been exceptions made, but the value of being in a workplace with colleagues that have support functions or ancillary functions or co-functions with you, and the ability to talk and ask a question, resolve a problem, the ability to get in front of management, all those kinds of things, I think, make for a healthier workforce. Now, that's not to say remote working is not healthy. So I don't want to say that being a remote worker is not healthy. I have some that report to me that are doing very, very well. But for the majority of people in a professional environment, I think it's important. I think the collaboration that happens spontaneously sometimes comes up, you come up with some of the best ideas and the best solutions and the best alerts to issues. Could you imagine having to email to Chris saying, oh my God, I just heard about this, and then having to wait for his response when you need a response instantaneously? And I do agree that people like to go into town hall. They go in with their bills and they want to get them paid. And it is the center of the town. I don't mean geographically, but it's the seat of government. It's where what everybody does in this town, it all goes back to town hall. And I don't think remote working town hall staff is a smart avenue for us to take.
Mr. Creighton, anything else?
Well, I think it's to add on to that comment, people want to be able to talk to a person if there's something that they're not sure about. And we have a lot of people who are elderly or whatever. So having a real office there that you can walk into and ask questions is very important. And I think that's.
One thing too that I would add, so I work for the government. I've been a remote worker for maybe about 10 years. That said, when I need to do something extremely serious, I do it in person. I fly to where I need to go, to the courthouse I need to enter into, or the headquarters I need to go to. And I think that, to Chris's point and everyone's point, for many people, the issues they're dealing with, whether it's a bill or a tax assessment, are extremely serious to them. So they want to do it in person. Also, too, I think it's worth remembering that even for those of us who do remote work very successfully, many of those that Cohasset residents hire are tradespeople, are plumbers, are workers, are electricians, are contractors. They work in person. They go in person. They are the heavy, frequent users of town hall. They are getting the jobs done for us. They are pulling the permits for us, going and having their questions answered on our behalf. They, as we know, they are not working remotely. That is just not the style of how work gets done for many, many, many who do that. And that's part of the reason we decrease the hours, or I should say, open the town hall earlier, was to accommodate the many tradespeople that come through town hall. So there's also, I think, those who serve our residents who are coming in on their behalf. So anyway, I just wanted to flesh that out and make sure we were all on the same page in case someone wanted to have some discussion. So if, folks have any comments that they want to make on the FAQs that are there, that I realized that they were just sent around this afternoon, again, trying to cull the information as we receive it. One thing that I did want to put out there was that we looked at, because one of the questions we got is, isn't the cost of 1 Pleasant Street, Mr. Creighton, I know that you had asked this in terms of square footage and price per square foot. How does this square up? And so the existing town hall, we got a estimate to renovate or rebuild our existing town hall at approximately $26 million, which is approximately $900 a square foot. This is consistent, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is consistent with the public safety numbers that we also got across Massachusetts. We know, for example, that the ones being built next door are over $1,000 a square foot in terms of what a public construction costs. So the purchase price of 1 Pleasant Street is $9.1 million or $375 per square foot. So if we had to build the same building on our own, it would be arguably 3 times as expensive. So that's the benefit we get by buying a commercial building off the street, as compared to building it ourselves, which is the exact reason I think the board is in favor. So,
And Madam Chair, I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting you, but
No,
it also
please.
aligns perfectly with the feedback that we got very clearly at the last town meeting. That the objection to the town hall proposal at that time was largely around cost.
Yeah.
So we have provided a solution that directly aligns with the guidance we received at town meeting.
okay.
With an added benefit I may throw in there,
Yes.
a revenue generator, essentially.
So maybe let's move to the police and fire satellite station. Is there any update? Nope. Okay.
Good there.
So here, there are FAQs here. Happy to discuss any of them. If anyone wants to talk about any of these, I think these are all ones that have been, pretty well known for a good amount of time. One thing I would highlight under the fire FAQs is a question that is probably the biggest recurring question we get, which is, will the new facility require more staffing? And the short answer is no. As it relates to fire, again, to be clear, the 3A site is planned for daytime operation between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. when the fire department receives approximately 75% of its call volume. The current staff of 6 will be split between the two, Elm Street and 3A. So again, just want to reiterate for all, 4 people watching, that is again, what will happen. So that moves us to the road and sidewalk fund. And,
I think,
sorry, go on.
no, I think we're all on the same page here. I was reading, and that's something I was putting together, but you got me the punch, thank you. But, why aren't we fixing our roads out of our operating budget? Which. we can't
I'm
do.
sorry, can we just go back to fire? I apologize, Paul. Go back to fire for one moment, because I have had questions about the renovations needed at Elm Street for the new fire department headquarters. It was commented last night that perhaps that would require an override. And I believe that Nick and Chief Dockeray looked at what chief needs, and it can be held out of the facility budget.
Primarily, yes.
Okay. There was thought that there might be a request for an override to fix that
But
building.
another override just for Elm Street?
Yeah, and,
We never even brought that up.
no, I know. I just wanted to get that out there, that there isn't.
So the
Sorry.
facilities team's on there with the electrician, with the plumber, to see if they can accommodate their needs based on Chief Dockery's requests, and their needs can be accommodated within the budget.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's quite all right.
It's one of the benefits of having a skilled facilities team that can do that kind of.
Thank you, Ellen. New FAQ. Okay, just added that on. And this, police and fire had a unanimous vote by advisory and a 4-1 vote by capital, 4 in favor, 1 abstained, if I recall correctly. So now roads and sidewalks, that was a 3-2 vote, 3 in favor, 2 not in favor, and
What's your, I'm sorry, Gene, what, Madam Chair, who did the 3-2 vote?
capital. Advisory is unanimous.
Advisory is unanimous.
Yeah. And the issue that we heard there was essentially wanting to use, well, there was 2 issues, wanting to use the operating budget to fund our roads and sidewalks. That was the first issue, and the second issue was a lack of comfort with the stabilization fund mechanism, it being perceived, I think, as too new, not enough discipline, and so we can talk about that second, but I just wanted to talk about the first in terms of roads and sidewalks being funded through the operating budget. So, Mr. Senior, as our financial director, in your opinion, and our CFO of the town, in your opinion, what do you think about our ability to fund roads and sidewalks through the operating budget?
I think it would require significant cuts in other areas. The town has never funded road maintenance, and ever. When I got here, it was being funded from whatever free cash was available. And a conversation was made, well, why don't we steadily put this into the capital plan so we have a consistent amount of money going into this, and it's better oversight. And that's what we did. And now the conversation is, how do we get a steady stream of revenue? Now, if you take it out of the operating budget, $800,000 is 50% of the operating budget for the Public Works Department. And most of the operating budget in the Public Works Department is people and equipment. So, do we not have a tree and park crew, or do we shut the library down 3 days a week? I mean, those are the kinds of conversations that would have to take place if we're going to cut $800,000 out of the budget. I'm not even touching the school side, by the way. I'm not even having that conversation. So, the operating budget on the town side is only $12 million. I mean, I know the whole big budget is 55, but the actual money that we use to operate the police and fire and public works and all is only $12 million. $800,000 is a very substantial amount.
So that's your police cruiser, that's anything that we could, again, limit services.
It's library and senior services and police and fire and public works and.
Open the dump 1 day a week, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, $800,000 is a lot of money in the operating budget. And, we squeeze as much as we can. We've implemented savings in lots of areas, including all the green communities work that's been done for lighting and all the street lighting. We've spent a lot of money on all of those things. At the end of the day, though, what drives all the equipment makes it all go with the people that make it happen. And we kept a tight rein on that. At the same time, $800,000 is that's a whole department. I said it's half. Public Works is $1.5 million. So $800,000 would be basically half of the entire public works, and that operates everything we do.
Ms. Morrow, is there something that you were going to interject on, or Mr. Plex? I feel like you were both wanting to say something.
Yeah, but I probably shouldn't, but
Please go, Ellen.
I'm just going to say, having looked at the town budget and having been part of town government for at least the last 7 years, if there were $800,000 in the budget, a hand would have been raised and someone would have said, hey, why don't we put this into roads? And I think the insinuation that the budget isn't scrubbed, that the budget isn't reviewed, that we can find the money without a cut to services is ludicrous. Because if we could, we would have. Because we're not in the financial position we are as a town by fiscal mismanagement. So I kind of discount all of that, and I understand it's a question. But the reality is, if we had the money, we would have done it. We wouldn't be proposing this if we had the money. So,
No, that's been my answer to every time I've heard the same question. So we're on the same page there.
Ellen, ironically, my comment was very similar to yours, which was whether or not the parties who are raising this suggestion of pulling the funds out of the operating budget had offered a proposal of where in the operating budget those funds would come from. I would invite that discussion of where in the operating budget we should make those additional cuts to accommodate this. But I think absent that productive suggestion, this is hard to take seriously.
I could answer that.
Mr. Brady, if you want to answer quickly.
You're not going to get an answer. Plain and simple, because they don't have the answers to give.
So, one thing that we looked at on the long-term financial or Cohasset Financial Planning Group, I should say, is we did look at the operating budget. And, one of the challenges that we face is that we as a town can essentially raise 2.5% of extra income every year vis-a-vis taxes. That's Proposition 2.5. But our healthcare and our pension costs are rising by 7 to 10% a year. And this isn't even accounting for salaries that are increasing. So we're constantly trying to juggle against these costs that are inflating faster than the amount that we can raise taxes. And so mathematically, this is the juggle that we're in. And so, for example, we're taking money that we get from our building permit fee revenue and other fee revenue to try to manage that budget as we go forth. And really, to Ellen's point and Chris's point, all the Chris's, that we're really talking about personnel, because to the extent that we have extra money, so to speak, or free cash, which really isn't free cash. So, which I just want to sort of dispel the myth about what this is. So the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and Christine, please correct me if I'm wrong, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue advises that the town keep in an undesignated fund balance 3 to 4%, essentially a reserve, each year to ensure that we can meet and pay for our services, given the fact that we are going to be having a potential funding shift throughout the year. For example, if you have a pandemic or you have inflation and people don't build as many houses or they don't buy as many cars, there's revenue that's going to be changing that may not align with what we projected. And so they want towns and cities to maintain that cushion. And so we do that. And at the same time, we do hit our targets pretty well. But certainly there's financial shocks that come and there's unexpected things that happen. And so when you look at that balance at the end of the year, since 2012, that amount has ranged from $822,000 to $2.5 million. And since 2012, if you look at how we've spent that undesignated fund balance or free cash, under our financial policies, the vast amount has gone to capital items, OPEB contributions, and stabilization funds. A much smaller amount has been spent on operating costs, with the primary driving consistent forces being police and fire overtime and IT expenses, because we've had to invest in IT given the evolution of how town government works, and just the economy generally. I do want to point out of note, less than 500,000 of the 16.7 million in free cash that has been generated since 2012 has been spent on school operating costs when you review every single warrant and every single expenditure, which I have done. So my point is that free cash is inconsistent. It varies year to year, right, depending on what's going on in the economy. We're spending the vast amount on OPEB, which I think we all agree is a good thing. We want to keep doing. We're spending it on capital items already, including roads and sidewalks. We're spending it on police and fire overtime, which we really don't have a choice. If people have worked, we have to pay them. That's the way it goes. So that's the other place I just wanted to highlight, because I do think some of the discussion might be in that direction. And again, just to sort of look at the facts, and, you know, anyone can go through the warrants themselves and do the same thing. That's the reality of where the money is and where the money's going. Including to roads and sidewalks. There's been free cash allocations.
Gene, I have to say something.
Please.
You've done an excellent job.
Yeah.
I've watched these things come through, and the questions that are being asked, they're answered succinctly, a lot more succinctly than I would be able to do, I might add, but we'll leave that right alone. But thank you. You've done a good job.
Oh, well, thank you, Jack. I enjoy making spreadsheets. So in terms of the stabilization fund, I think these are going to be questions that are going to come up in the context of roads and sidewalks and the schools. There have been a lot of questions about how the fund works. One of the things I did want to highlight with respect to the stabilization fund policies, I did notice one of the edits to the policies that I didn't pick up on last week from capital budget was that there was an edit out of that the town intends to continue the fund the next year at the amount we're recommending plus a potential increase. So, and I don't want to speak for the board, but I do think it is our intent to use this as a long-term funding mechanism to, you know, meet our 20-year road paving plan, to address the school capital repairs that are on the list. And so I did think it was important that we put back that language so we are transparent with the voters, that this isn't just a 1 year, $800,000 or $1.5 million, you know, tax increase. This is meant to be a tax increase unless and until there's some material change that we need to consider.
That should be in there. I'm glad you noticed it.
Okay. If the board's all on the same page, when we get the policy back from advisory and the schools, and I flagged this to them too, that's something that I'll put back in, and we'll just vote that into the final copy, and I'll try to flag it for everyone.
Can't remember where that came from. I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on that myself.
Yeah, I missed it. Yes, sir.
We'll be posting for a meeting on Monday evening prior to town meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it your thought that maybe we'll be voting on this policy then?
I think we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I think we can. I think it will. I'm hoping I know that advisory has definitely put it on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain about the schools, but definitely advisory.
Okay.
So I think that would be good to have that, you know, just locked down. Given the amount of discussion, do we want to quickly discuss how the stabilization fund works, including if we get questions at town meeting, just to make sure everyone is on the same page about exactly how the fund works? Because there have been a lot of questions.
On the roads or in the schools? I'm sorry.
On both. The funding mechanism is exactly the same.
And Capital is meeting with the Department of Revenue Thursday so that they can understand how this works.
I think we have to do it.
Meeting. I posted it as a public meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand it because I was part of the school committee when we did the special education stabilization fund, so. But I think it's a good idea to just walk through it one more time.
Okay, so let's walk through it one more time, unless Paul or anyone else wants to walk through it. I'm happy to do it, but I'm happy to defer to anyone who's
Gene, it's
interested.
all yours.
Okay, so the mechanism is that under state law, town meeting and a vote at the ballot creates the fund and the initial funding amount. In this instance, 800,000 for roads and sidewalks, 1.5 million for school capital. The money can only be spent for the lawful purpose identified, i.e. roads and sidewalks, for example. To the extent that there is money that the town wants to spend from the fund that can only be spent, appropriated, transferred, whatever verb you want to use, through a town meeting vote. And so that will go through the typical warrant article process. Select board puts it on the warrant, it goes to advisory, it goes to capital. You know, maybe the school committee, I expect, or school facilities committee will come to us with requests. Each year, the select board can decide the amount of the fund. So for example, next year at this time, we're sitting here, we say, all right, what do we want the fund amount to be? If we want to increase it, the maximum we can increase it, and I'm going to use road and sidewalks as an example, is 800,000 plus 2.5%, 2.5%. It's Proposition 2.5. You can only increase a tax by 2.5% in Massachusetts, absent a vote like the one we're going through right now at the ballot. So that is the way to increase the fund, and that's the maximum amount you can increase the fund. The board could also lower the fund. We could lower it down to 500,000, let's say, next year. But if we lower it to 500,000, then 2 Novembers from now, or 2 years from now, we can only increase the fund from the $500,000 amount times 2.5. But let's say we don't spend any of the money, hypothetically, because we're saving up for a big road repair or a big sidewalk repair. We can keep the money in the fund as we're saving up for it. We can earn money off of the fund and go from there. If the board drops the fund to 0, if we wipe out the fund, 2.5% times 0 is 0. So we have to have a new election and recreate the fund. So select board elections will become important. There is a statutory mechanism to change the lawful purpose with respect to the fund, but that will have to be done by a ballot vote. And so it has to go through an election process. So that's the long and short of it. That's what I expect the DOR will say, including based on the words of the statute. Yes.
I didn't even say exactly what you want. There's something that might add to the FAQ I was just thinking about, because I heard it on a Capitol person saying basically what they're looking at this fund, that it is an encouragement to spend, which I disagree with. It's encouraging, you know. So no one's going to give up the money. Do you see what I'm getting at? In other words, lowering it, and that was said. So we're actually forcing, say, let's use roads and sidewalks, for instance. Not that we can't spend it, but we're actually encouraging the spend because no one's want to come back. When we came back at this thing initially, is that we hope at some point it is de-escalating when we get the roads to where they're supposed to be and we get on a maintenance cycle. I don't think that hit home. But I want to see if we could put that aside, you know, in any way that we're not begging people to spend the money, right? But what we're trying to do is catch up. So will the money be spent? Yes, but in the right places. I don't know how to answer that question or that commentary from Capitol, that it's basically.
I think the bottom line is it's hard to be a politician in Cohasset and tax people just for the sake of it. I mean, that's just not a winning election strategy or a winning election, implementation. I think we're very mindful that our residents of all different income levels are very attuned to their taxes, which is why we've really tried to be thoughtful in the tax increases we're seeking right now and the tax increases that we may be asking them to pay in the future. I think that's just the bottom line.
And I think there's a value equation also with what our proposals are. The value that we're proposing for 135 King and 1 Pleasant Street and these stabilization funds are very economical. There was a suggestion perhaps for the schools that it's a debt exclusion as opposed to a stabilization fund. And why not take the $20 or $30 million that's needed on the 1 to 10 year punch list and just bond it and get it done so that there's an end. I think there's a lot of concern that there's no end for stabilization funds. And I think the answer is, the end is when you have no more roads or you have no more schools, because they will continue to, once you pave a road, it goes to the bottom of the list, you're going to have to maintain it. You know, once you fix a roof, you're going to have to maintain it. And we're in this position because we haven't been able to do that in the past. And the other thing is, if say we bond 30 million for the schools to do all the repairs, who can do the work? Can our facilities department, can Nick and his crew spend and do the work for $30 million in 18 months, 24 months, whatever? So then you bond money that you're not even using, and you're accruing interest on it. And the cost of that bonded money over 30 years is almost as much as the bond because of the interest rates. So that was one of the suggestions. And I don't think that's smart. And as far as the schools go, oh, sorry, I don't mean to segue off of roads and sidewalks.
No, we're just,
No.
it's all the funds. we're
It's
talking-
all sort of funds.
Right, so for the schools, out of the 33% of capital budget allocations that have been given to the school since town meeting 2018, which was 3.4 million, 2.6 million was for maintenance. That's $10 a square foot has been spent on the school buildings in 6 years for maintenance. $10 a square foot. I don't know how you do that. Do you know what you know what I'm saying? It really speaks to an inability to fund properly repairs and maintenance. And, you know, Paul Keir said it at our forum. He said, we have to be stewards of our town assets. And I think we're taking that role seriously with these funds.
You know, you hit something right on the head too, I might add, that we bond that once, the 30 million you're talking about. So we replaced the roof, we replaced the windows. That's great. Someday, we're gonna have to do it again,
Right,
all right? 10, 20 years on, we're gonna have to do it again.
right.
Well, and I'm hoping that the DOR too will at least confirm the information on their website that there have been 12 towns, this is a relatively new statutory mechanism, there have been 12 towns that have voted this 177 times. So when people find the funds, they like the funds. I think they like the flexibility. They use them to, as Ms. Marr said, avoid
Excuse me.
the bonding costs that you get. So for example, if we were to do 30 million using current municipal interest rates on bonds, that would equal a $47 million cost to the town over time. That's what we're talking about in terms of interest on such a large debt exclusion. And it's not that debt exclusions aren't appropriate. We're certainly proposing one for 1 Pleasant Street, as well as for the police and fire. And so there's definitely an expectation that you use debt exclusions, particularly on things like those acquisitions. But I think if you have the ability to pay as you go, which is really what we're talking about, we'll thank ourselves for that. We really will at the end of the day. And, you know, Ellen, one thing that I was thinking is that, and I think you would probably speak best to this, the MSBA, as they look at Cohasset and they're willing to give us state money, including, for example, for repairs. I'm not even talking about a new or innovative school, just accelerated repair program. Based on your extensive experience, do you think that the MSBA takes into account whether the town is willing and able to step up and do responsible funding of its own repairs in terms
Yes.
of grants?
Yes. I mean, when I was on the committee, we had a meeting with MSBA, and they absolutely said that maintaining your own buildings and taking care of your assets is a critical factor in supporting your application. They said they really, you know, unless you're a town that can't afford to do so, you know, much lower socioeconomic conditions, an inner city school district, or just something that economic conditions prohibit it. But the representative said, for a town like Cohasset or any other town on the South Shore that doesn't maintain their buildings, thinking that letting them fall into disrepair will push them to the head of the list for MSBA, that they're woefully mistaken. So, and to that end, you commented MSBA has reopened their accelerated repair program with a $150 million fund. And I think Osgood Roof is probably the first one up. And maybe Deer Hill Windows that we should, because it's roofs, windows, and mechanicals, boilers. No, it's not anymore. They removed the mechanicals, yeah. So, and I don't think an application for accelerated repair for Osgood would impact an application for Cohasset Middle High School. So we ought to jump on that.
And we're talking about significant funding through the MSBA. And so really, we're also investing in our ability to leverage and get state funding by doing something like this school capital fund to preclude us from needing to do something like a very expensive debt exclusion when we could have avoided it.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? I think both of those points are absolutely well worth making at town meeting. Okay. Nothing on rec projects?
Smooth sailing.
All right. And there's no additional discussion on the warrant articles, the additional warrant articles, i.e. zoning. One thing, just so the board knows, that we did talk about what the moderator is with respect to the time and how late town meeting would be going, potentially. I think there's a desire to play it by ear and see if there's an ability to get the zoning articles accomplished relatively quickly. That would be great. At the end, we'll see though. I think that there was also a discussion about having it the next day, continuing town meeting to the next day if necessary, depending on how things went. So everyone should just be prepared. If that's what it comes to, hopefully it won't, but we'll see. So it's hard to tell how long the earlier town meeting articles are going to go. It could be a pretty robust discussion. All right. Anything else anyone wants to say on the additional warrant articles? Nope. All right. Communications.
We don't really have a huge update. I will tell you that from large laminated posters around town, both handed out to businesses, organizations, also 24 by 36 posters over the schools. That's up in Field and then over by the RTF as well. We're continuing to push forward on social media and online. Tax calculator,
Saw that
tax
today.
estimator is up for anybody that is interested. Go in and you can plug in your street address. I've had many folks ask me about that, which is great. And they appreciate that. And that was something that the board was instrumental in asking for. And so I really think that's it for us. Working on a couple of different, tweaking the sidewalks video, just to put in Elm Street and some of the photos that I've gotten from Elm Street. It's a video and then obviously town hall video for the floor, town meeting along with there's only 3 or 4 videos. So get ready to rock and roll.
Did you, do we have Church Street in there too? Elm Street's great.
I'm 99% sure Church is in there. If not, we can add that.
I thought it was too. I just want to make sure. It's just, I cover all 4 corners of Cohasset. That's all.
I'll double check. I don't want to misspeak, but I.
No, I thought so too, Justin. So just throwing it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Justin, I'm just going to repeat what you just said as to the tax calculator, just to make sure folks at home can hear you, that we do have a new tax calculator, tax estimator out on the website. When you click on to the town website, there's a pop-up box. In the pop-up box, you can click on the special tax estimator or calculator. You can also get it through the special town meeting information link as well, to the extent that you want to enter in your address. So I just want to make sure people at home could hear too.
And it's very easy to access. If for some reason you have a hide, you have a website blocker that blocks the pop-up, you can access it. Front page of the website, you just click on 2023 town meeting information, and it's in the upper left-hand corner. It's 2 clicks.
Okay. So we are going to have a select board meeting Monday before town meeting, just as is customary, probably to focus on the stabilization policy to get that through. Is there anything else the board wants to discuss before we go to the town manager update? Okay. Mr. Senior?
There's such a flurry of things going on. I think we'll keep the focus on town meeting. So had a crew up there today, Justin and Ron and facilities. So more seats will be set on the floor. There'll be about 500 seats on the floor, and the gym itself will hold upwards of 1,000 people and more. And I know, we can go all the way up to 2,000 if we need to. If we have 2,000 people, it's going to be a rocking town meeting. So
Better put the week aside.
exactly. So, but I think I'm going to remind everybody, bring your warrant from home. We're not going to have a lot of extra copies of that because it was such a big document. And there'll be copies of the motions available right there. So we're also going to be trying to add more. Ron and his IT team are trying to add more screens a little bit deeper into the room if you can't see the main screen up in front as easily, because we're going to be showing videos, so they want to be able to have those out there. And they're going to try to ramp up the number of microphones and all to allow more access from the floor. So, that's all coming along fine. Question? Once we clear town meeting and the election, there are other things that we'll need to start pivoting to talk about as we come into next, pivot into planning for 25, believe it or not, FY25. I will update some personnel things too, but not until we clear town meeting. So there's a flurry of work going on to fill some positions and to figure out steps. I will tell you that we do have an interim gentleman who's assisting us on as kind of the finance director emeritus. Yes, he's a retired finance director in Foxborough and other places. So he's helping some of the big ticket stuff, the recap, working with the assistant accountant. So he came in last week, it was great. So he'll be with us a day or so a week. And we also have another position we're exploring, which we'll hopefully have more updates for you in 2 weeks. So things are moving along okay on that. So,
Do me a favor and save me a warrant, will you? I didn't get one.
you get one at home?
No. just,
Because your street was being paid.
right. Or got buried underneath a good point.
Did you get a warrant?
I did.
If I didn't
Only
know
one.
If I didn't know, I would
You only get
have.
one.
I didn't get his.
If I didn't know, I would have taken you without even a
Figured
mailbox.
you would say.
That I would.
I should also mention, I don't want to forget about election. The town clerk and I did video, that's up as well, and election flyers have gone out everywhere. So I don't want to forget.
That's right. We should remind everybody that you can early vote all next week between Monday and Friday during regular business hours. So you can come right into the clerk's office and early vote, no problem. You can also request an absentee ballot up until Monday, I think. But you can actually just do it in person too. So all week, Monday through Friday, regular business hours.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Senior and Ms. Larry. Select board comments. You're only an hour behind. Mr. Flex.
So with respect to the time, I'll be on my soapbox for but a brief moment. The reality of modern politics is negativity drives who goes to town meeting, who goes to the polls. It's important for all of us who have worked so hard on these projects that could be very good for the town to encourage our neighbors, our friends, to show up to town meeting, to speak up, and to show up at the election. That's how we get these good projects that are good for Cohasset through.
Mr. Green?
I second what Chris had to say. We've got to get people to show up. And is there anybody still listening?
Okay.
Two people.
Two people. Well, two people will show up, but anyway, we need to encourage that. Thank you.
Ms. Marr? Okay. Mr. Grady?
I'm just gonna third what Chris said and, let it go with that tonight.
All right, I'm gonna thank my husband for being one of the two people probably watching right now as we speak and supporting this entire board through this process. It's been a lot of work for everyone, including all of our families who have really had to deal with this being just a very, very robust volunteer exercise. But I echo my colleague's sentiments. So, all right. And on that note, actually, there still is an RTF sign up for those interested in terms of select board being out at various locations. RTF is one place. We can coordinate as the weekend gets closer. I would also note we do have a Veterans Day ceremony. Actually, almost forgot about that on
When is that?
Saturday at 11. Yes.
At the Legion.
Yes, so that is probably something that you want to consider if you're in Cohasset.
I'm sorry, where is it?
Up at the Legion.
Oh, okay,
If the weather permits, they'll be outside.
okay, okay,
It's from 11 to 12 on Saturday.
thank you.
I should say, town hall, just so people realize, thank you. Wherever day. So we're closed Friday and in celebration of Veterans Day. So all town offices are closed on Friday. The RTF is open on Friday, but closed on Saturday for Veterans Day.
So I'm going to forward that to the board, but just for the public, 11 to 12 Saturday at the Legion. And I did want to thank the many veterans that I know are serving on our boards and committees, including Mr. Grady. So thank you in advance, Mr. Grady, for your service in anticipation of Veterans Day.
I was gonna thank Trish for watching, but she's not.
All right, we have the approval of minutes
Let's close. Come on.
from 10:03 and 10:24.
Ellen, you good with me making a motion to approve?
I'm sorry.
Are you good with me making a motion to approve?
If nobody has any comments or edits, I reviewed them. I didn't find anything.
Then I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous support for the minutes. There's no topics not reasonably anticipated, right?
No,
Okay.
we got enough in front of us.
Would anyone like to make?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.